Morning, everybody. And I think Murthy has given a bit of an intro about also the topic I saw in the announcement. But basically, what I'll be talking about is the role of blockchain and AI in the health and wellness sector. And there's a huge demand, of course, as a lot of you might be aware, for health and wellness apps, and this is just proliferating. So it's a great opportunity and time to enter, but there are a number of challenges. And seemingly, blockchain and AI combined are able to solve multiple problems for the sector. And we have done some pioneering work in this. So I'm going to briefly, show some of that to give you a sense of how this is being tackled by the sector. Uh, that being said, so what's really the challenge is a number of things. The first is that most of the apps or solutions out there, they lack personalization, specifically in real time sense, and this hinders adoption because people don't find a lot of value with the solutions out there. Next is, and I think this is very pertinent, is the fear of your data getting misused, or there might be compromises to the data, and this again hinders adoption in a very massive way. Market, as I was explaining earlier, is exploding, right from the physical side to basically the trackers to all kinds of mental health apps and everything in between. So it's basically every few months you have a number of new apps coming, trying to tackle different problems. So this is still not addressing the core concern about data ownership and transparency, which I think in most of the cases makes people very hesitant. And then lastly, these solutions often don't have a certain level of stickiness. That is coming primarily from lack of engagement within the applications and solutions. And so, what has often been noticed is within roughly 3 months or so, people just basically abandon and move away. So, this, if I have to summarize, privacy, personalization, and the aspect that there is no engagement or limited engagement. I think these three things, in essence, are what's stopping this movement, so to speak. And the way to tackle it is obviously look at these issues and see what ways certain solutions can be implemented. And what has been found is that a combination of blockchain and AI in a number of interesting use cases is able to overcome vast majority of these problems. So before we dive in, I think is a very quick comparison in terms of how the two technologies stack up, and it's pretty straightforward, so to speak. But I think when you look at it, it's basically on the two ends of the spectrum. So on one side is a intelligence which is centralized, on the other side is information which is decentralized. So it's an open system, closed system, and an open system. Of course, it is probabilistic. Then here it is 100% deterministic. It's still a black box largely. Blockchain is 100% transparent. Of course, there are nuances, and there are shades in each case. But if I have to basically sort of strip down and get it to comparison, this is how the two stack up. So as you see, these are two different systems, very disparate, yet when they are combined, they have numerous complementarities which unlock a lot of value. And today we are talking about healthcare, so I'm going to be specific to the sector, but this is being applied in a number of other sectors with a lot of success. So we spoke about these issues earlier on. What are the challenges? Now we will basically touch down a little, deeper into some of these issues. So first is privacy and security. And if you look at the data which is out there, almost 60% of all digital health businesses in the last 2 years or so have had certain kind of major security breach where it involved personal data. So that's not really a good sign, because while the systems are evolving, of course, a lot of compliances are coming into play, yet the processes and the systems and tools are not being applied adequately to protect. And partly, obviously, it's the architecture issue as well, but I would say predominantly it's not really one of the key areas, which is obviously the major challenge. Then, personalization is another key aspect. So, the sector typically seems to focus more on a one size fits all approach. And what that does is it basically overlooks people's specific lifestyle issues, or if they have a specific health need. That is definitely something which is being missed in today's application. And so, people find the recommendations or solutions which are offered pretty generic, not really specific to them. Engagement, I think I was talking about earlier, but usually people are looking for interactive and dynamic, specific to the kind of activities they are involved in. Those the kind of inputs they are looking for. What we have today often lacks meaningful engagement, doesn't really cater to the specific needs. And I think that is where a lot of people don't find value beyond a point. And I think I mentioned 30% leave applications within 90 days. And I think this is one of the major issues, that there is no reward mechanism, there is no feedback loops specifically meant to sort of keep the people hooked onto the application. And then data transparency and ownership. So once the data is shared with the application, how many times it's going to be shared, with whom it's going to be shared, what parts of the data will be shared, there's no clarity, there's a lot of opacity, and I think this makes a lot of people very nervous. So, as I mentioned, I think the way we have been seeing, at least in our work, and also how the industry has been implementing, is by combining the two technologies, blockchain and AI. And how they're combining is very interesting. So, obviously, AI deals with a lot of personalization matters. Then blockchain is all about preserving the privacy. And so when you combine the two, it leads to privacy preserving personalization, which I think is where the sector is heading to. It solves major issues. Now, one specific point is on the engagement, and I think engagement is tackled by blockchain alone through their tokenized reward mechanisms and systems. So I think when these two or three technologies come together, I would say almost 80-90% of the current issues which the solutions have are being addressed. And this is example, I mean, obviously, representation of how some of these solutions play out. So they are tracking number of critical parameters of an individual's health and wellness, and that measurement leads to a number of things. So first is, of course, measuring those information data points, and then basis that you're offering personalized forecast on a daily basis, and a number of long-term basis. So some of the key metrics, I think a lot of people who are using trackers might be aware. This is very high level. Of course, this number is more than 100 different data points. So sleep quality, mood, energy levels, steps taken, etc. And what this leads is into these actionable insights and activities where the information that we have measured is now used to make certain forecast for the day, for instance. So what example could be that, for instance, tomorrow, based on whatever information I got till the end of the day today, seems that you will have like a low energy day. So what are some of the steps that you could take? So maybe a short stretching session at a certain point, a mindfulness exercise, drink more water. It can have, time duration set for alarming you, etc. Again, these are, of course, a few of the specific areas. There are a lot of other things where it gets into details, um, on your blood pressure and some of the other things. Of course, these are all recommendations, not really, something which is a medical advice, so to speak. So if there is really critical conditions, there definitely has to be a doctor involved. So coming from the inputs and the forecast, it is now using that to further improve the system on a feedback on a regular basis. So one is the accuracy of the information, of the prediction it is making, and second is the relevancy. So what happens is, at the end of the day, users come in and they sort of give feedback based on what they saw the application present in them and how relevant and useful it was. And I'm going to talk about that, why users are going to do it, because I think one of the things I mentioned earlier was engagement, and second was making people do certain things without really being an incentive. So there is obviously an incentive mechanism which is built in, why people would come in and basically give this feedback on a daily basis. Uh, Secondly, this feedback, of course, leads to longer term implications where this becomes very specific to the individual. So, as we were talking about earlier, these are usually one size fit all kind of solutions, which is why they are not really very popular. Versus this kind of approach where people start to get information which is very specific and relevant to them, so the chances of them sticking around longer and then inviting friends and family becomes a lot higher. Now we talked about initially user engagement and the fact that we have blockchain involved, and blockchain has been instrumental in a number of ways to reward and tokenize various applications. I think that is what is being used here. So tokens are being used to incentivize people to perform certain things, and those tokens obviously have value, not really monetary value, but value within the ecosystem where you can do a lot of things with them. But as I was alluding to in the earlier slide, tokens are, of course, used for daily check-ins, providing feedback. So every time you come in, you check in every single day, you earn certain tokens. And then when you provide feedback, you earn X amount of tokens. And if you're maintaining consistency, it's, of course, there's a measure of what consistency means. You again are earning tokens. So these tokens you're accumulating, which of course you can use a number of ways. But what this kind of system is doing is, it is one, helping people come to the application on a daily basis, and secondly, of course, boosting long-term wellness habits, and people are able to focus on their goals which are very specific to them. Then I think the user control data, again, coming back to how blockchain actually is architecting a lot of these solutions and how we can utilize parts of that for securing, the data which is shared through these applications is paramount. Now, what blockchain does is it helps you have full control. So you have complete control over this data. You also have control in terms of what parts of data you want to share, what parts of data you want to share with whom, when do you want to share it, when do you want to revoke that, what is the number of times a person can use, because every time it is being used by somebody else, you would immediately get notified, and if you have proper authorization set in, it will only be used the second or a third or a fourth time after your permission. So I think this gives people a lot of confidence that, okay, I can share my information with the application. I'm in complete control, and I decide who gets to see what part of data and when I want to revoke the permission, I can do that. So I think this makes it a lot more confident for a lot of people to be able to share their information freely. Now, basis obviously some of the work that has been done and what we're doing, what we are seeing is there are certain trends which are emerging where I think there are future opportunities which are still in the preliminary stages, but I see applications which are beginning to tackle some of these issues. And one of them is we have various health applications which are existing in silos, and there is a number of things which they're not able to share, of course, because of privacy concerns, because of data residency, and a lot of other issues. But when you have a blockchain layer on top of these different applications and you are interacting through that layer with all the encryptions that blockchain is able to offer, you are suddenly able to talk to different systems a lot more confidently without worrying too much about your data or misuse of data, etc. So this is one of the fundamental benefits of having a system like this, where you overlay it over other existing ecosystems. So you are able to use for multiple applications and apps, and these are all interconnected. People are, of course, able to share their data without any worries about that data getting misused or getting compromised. And importantly for the users, they now get a holistic view of their health and wellness spread across various different ecosystems, platforms which they might be on. So now they can have a single view of their wellness, and then basis that they can take more efficient measures to tackle that. Improved health outcomes. This is straight off coming from some of the work that AI, of course, is beginning to do in this sector as well. So whether it's focusing on stress, sleep patterns, exercise patterns, etc., it's starting to give you good insights there. And again, this would definitely depend on a medical practitioner getting involved. So while it might give you certain insights, the recommendations, if they are very strong, obviously they need intervention from a specialist, not individuals. Tokenized rewards. I was mentioning earlier that blockchain is able to now connect different ecosystems. What it also does is these tokens, which people are, sort of earning by doing activities on the platform, they are able to use it in different ways within the individual apps, but also outside within the ecosystem. And how that happens is you are able to use it for various wellness services, basically either for exchange or for discounts and a lot of other ways. So, for instance, if you're looking for getting a fitness class or mental health resource, nutrition counseling, and a lot of other areas, for instance, you know vitamins, supplements, etc., etc. Even insurance, I think, is one of the use cases we're working about. Of course, it's a very complicated one, as we all know, because of regulations, but these are all the areas which could be tackled. So basis a person's health profile plotted over time and being fully verified because it's on the blockchain. Now there is a case to be made that a person who is having a more healthy lifestyle probably gets a lower health insurance premium versus somebody else whose lifestyle is not that healthy, right? So that kind of offering, of course, you can start to think and devise. But as I said, there's a regulatory hurdle and a lot of other things to be sort of worked on before such a thing can become reality. But nutraceuticals and all kinds of other allied services are people are planning to offer. So I mean, I know a number of businesses who are trying to tackle this. So, in conclusion, these two technologies are transformative for the sector, as I was mentioning. When the two are combined, we get a safer, personalized, and more engaging experience. And then, basically, because users have control over what they see in terms of data, where it is going. So, I think the confidence that okay, I am driving this is a lot more, and which is where the stickiness to these platforms, long-term habit formation, and then of course the engagement part, which was there in the previous point. All of that comes together. I think that's in a nutshell. I mean, this is what we do, as Murthy was already mentioning. We do blockchain and AI. These are some of the services, and I think that's the end. So